Feminism refers to political, cultural, and economic movements aimed to establish greater rights, legal protection for women, and women's liberation. Meanwhile, according to Nancy Cott, feminism is the belief in the importance of gender equality, invalidating the idea of gender hierarchy as a social constructed concept, meaning equal rights and privileges for both men and women. During the Spanish colonization era, feminism was unheard of. In the 19th century, the Filipino women's colonial status had determined her social role of being a wife, mother, spinster, or worker, dependent and dedicated to her social circle. The Spaniards' laws grounded womanly behavior and roles of the women to take a contrary role or activities running against those implemented by the law and of male dominance would create social tension. That is why Rizal in general viewed Filipino women as obedient and a non-fighter rather than a branded social nuisance. He lamented that girls of his youth were mild-mannered, charming, virginal, and that they were also completely submissive to the powers in the society, especially to the friars. In Rizal's life, he had 9 significant women aside from his mother and sisters, who would also influence him in his views about women.
Segunda Katigbak and Leonor Valenzuela. Segundang Katigbak was his puppy love. Unfortunately, Segunda, his first love, was engaged to his townmate Manuel Luz. After his admiration for the short girl, then came Leonor Valenzuela, a tall girl from Pagsanhan. Rizal sent her love letters written under invisible ink, which could be read under the light of a candle or lamp. He visited her before he left for Spain and bade his last goodbye.
Leonor Rivera. Leonor is his sweetheart for 11 years. She played the greatest influence in him and even portrayed Maria Clara, a character in his novel No Limetangere, in her image. Unfortunately, Leonor's mother disapproved their relationship since Rizal was a filibustero. She hid all the letters of Rizal from Leonor. Leonor, believing that Rizal had forgotten her, sadly consented her marriage to an Englishman named Henry Keeping, her mother's choice. Consuelo Ortiga Iri. Consuelo is one of the prettier daughters of Don Pablo Ortiga, who fell in love with Rizal. He dedicated to her the A la Señorita C.O.I.A., which became one of his best poems. Since Rizal and his compatriots frequented the Ortiga residence in Madrid, and since Consuelo apparently asked him of romantic verses, he probably fell in love with her, but he backed out before the relationship became serious, because he wanted to remain faithful to Leonor Rivera, and he did not want to destroy his friendship with Eduardo Dalete, who was in love with Consuelo. Oh Sei-sang. Oh Sei-sang is the daughter of a Japanese samurai. She taught Rizal the Japanese art of painting sumie. She also helped Rizal improve his knowledge of the Japanese language. If Rizal hadn't been a patriotic man with a mission, he would have married her and lived a stable, happy life in Japan, because the Spanish embassy offered him a well-paid job there. Gertrude Beckett. In London, while annotating the Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas of Antonio de Morga, Rizal boarded in the house of the Beckett family. Gertrude, the eldest of the 3 Beckett sisters, fell in love with him. But Rizal suddenly left for Paris to avoid Gertrude, who was madly in love with him. Before leaving London, he was able to finish a sculpture of the Beckett sisters, which he gave to Gertrude as a sign of their brief friendship. Suzanne Jacobi. In 1890, Rizal moved to Brussels because of the high cost of living in Paris. He boarded in the house of the Jacobi sisters. Suzanne and Rizal fell in love with each other. Suzanne cried when Rizal left for Madrid and wrote to him there. Nelly boasted. Rizal, having lost Leonor Rivera, courted other ladies, one of which was Nelly Boasted. one of the two pretty daughters of Eduardo Boasted. He was a guest at the Boasted residence in Biarritz along with Juan Luna's brother, Antonio. Antonio courted Nelly, but she was deeply infatuated with Rizal. In a party held by the compatriots in Madrid, a drunken Antonio made unsavory remarks about Nelly, which provoked Rizal to challenge him in a duel. Fortunately, Antonio apologized to Rizal, thus prevented the duel. Nelly and Rizal's love affair unfortunately did not end in marriage, because Rizal refused to be converted to the Protestant faith, and Nelly's mother did not like a physician without many clients to be his son-in-law. The lovers ended as good friends when Rizal left Europe. Josephine Bracken, February 1895, while in the Pitan, Rizal met an 18-year-old Irish girl named Josephine Bracken, the adopted daughter of George Toffer from Hong Kong, who came to the Pitan to seek Rizal for eye treatment. Rizal's loneliness and boredom must have taken over him, and what better way to kill time than to fall in love. But the Rizal sisters suspected Josephine as a spy for the friars, which considered her a threat to Rizal. Rizal asked Josephine to marry him, but she wasn't able to make a decision because of her responsibility to her father. In March 1895, Toffer returned to Hong Kong since his blindness is incurable, while Josephine stayed with Rizal's family in Manila. Upon Josephine's return to the Pitan, Rizal arranged with Father Antonio Opac to marry them, but the priest wanted retraction as a precondition before marrying them. Therefore, Rizal, upon the advice of his friends and Josephine's consent, took her as his wife without the blessings of the church. Josephine later on gave birth to a premature stillborn baby, a result of an incident which might have shocked her.
According to Pasigi and Cavalli, Rizal was forever haunted by a sense of inadequacy, which explains his inability to sustain relationships with women and great ahead for responsibility. But it cannot be without that Rizal had an impassioned involvement in women's rights. In his novels Nonolimet Hangere and El Filibusterismo, he revealed the Filipinas of his environment, the Doña Victorinas and Consolaciones, whose aim in life was to imitate and even upstage first-class Spanish ladies through flawless clothing and speech, the Maria Claras and Cisas, who were weak to fight the maltreatment and injustice in the hands of men, just as the battered women of today experience. But there is also a Salome who lived independently and was self-sufficient. She loved Elias, the reformist, without any fear and even going out to ask him to be a part of her life. But his vision of Filipino women would change because of the women of Malolos.